Hey everyone. This week I wanted to talk about a little bit different topic. I want to talk about something that I think is well overdue, um, and that is a change to the way we connect wired to our networks. So as you know, most people probably use Wi-Fi. As a matter of fact, I'm running across several ISPs who only put in Wi-Fi devices. Can't even cable into the router modem combinations that they give you when they do the installs. And that's troubling on several levels, especially if there's a problem with the Wi-Fi. How do you get around it, or how do you get into the unit itself to do changes? You have to rely on the company calling them in, doing customer support, etc. But my goal here is not to talk about that side of it, but to talk about the way the new laptops are built. Now, as you know, laptops have gotten smaller and smaller and smaller, but the RJ45 plugs for Ethernet have not. And that's led to a compromise that is, in a lot of ways, kind of foolish. And that is, if you wire your computer in, you have to push down this little tab to expand it enough to allow the connector to go in. Now, why they haven't just replaced that connector, I don't understand. If you look on like a newer Dell, the Dells, Lenovo's, all of those lines had a port underneath that would plug into a dock. And all that's gone away now. We're doing USB-C ports, which is great. However, why didn't they also do the same thing with the RJ45 side? Now, all you have to do is replace it with a thin adapter into the computer and a dongle, right? You already have USB to Ethernet dongles out there. You wouldn't even have to have that much sophistication. All you have to do is reroute the wires through the dongle, through a smaller connector into the computer. It could look like USB-C 3, which I would think would cause some confusion for some people. You could, in theory, use the what I call idiot iPhone plug. I don't like anything that has the and this includes YubiKeys. Anything that has the contacts exposed, I think, is a foolish design, except for the fact that they'll be more likely to get damaged, more likely to get scuffed, and then have to be replaced. So from a sales standpoint, they're probably great that way. But what we're talking about here is simply everybody wants a thinner laptop. Not really sure why. I never thought the weight of the existing laptops was that bad, and they held up better. Toughbook types, I think, are still the same thickness. They just hold up better than the new thin generation. But if you're going to go with a thin generation, you have to do something. Now, I know that if you have a USB-C port, or a port replicator dock that you've got in place, they'll usually handle Ethernet for you, which is great, except it's an expensive piece to add to your computer. Right? You can plug it right into your laptop. You can plug your cable in, which is cheap, but it's flimsy, right? That little tab is breakable. If the tab comes off, that's what's holding the thing in place. You could still use it, but then you have the issue of how do I make sure that the Ethernet plug stays connected? Why they didn't just put a small thing in there with a dongle, which would be negligible in price for them, the manufacturers, to include with it, would allow you to use your laptop cabled easily in any environment without having to have any extra real equipment necessary. You don't have anything that needs to convert the USB-C 3 to Ethernet, for example. All you have to have is your wires coming in to get routed to a different pinout. It's simple. It'd be very easy to do. Now, when I say expensive, a good dock is going to run you close to $200 or more dollars for a good dock. Now, those docking stations usually allow you to have multiple monitors, right? And you could look at it that way. Well, this gets me my extra monitors, and I get the Ethernet on it for free. But then you have to travel with it, right? A small dongle that you could just throw in your bag is easier to travel with, allows you to cable in, and allows them to make a better laptop case design because they don't have that little tab in there that you have to worry about getting broken off. If you look at something like the USB-C 3, right, if you were to try to walk away and it's still plugged in, odds are that's just going to pop out, right? That's not something that's locked in place. It goes in deeply so that it's going to stay in place, but it's going to probably just swing out fairly easily. So you wouldn't have to worry about damage from the dongle. Certainly less than you would from that little tab that comes down. So my question is, why? Why did manufacturers not change over that when they've changed over so much else? USB-A is a bigger connector, and they still fit on the laptops. USB-C 3 makes it easier to use, as did Thunderbolt. Made it much thinner and easier to connect in so they can make the laptops thinner. A still stands in that way a little bit, and the compromise that they made for the RJ45s was to just make this little tab that's in there. And I really have to wonder about that, and I really have to think that we are well beyond time that we should have gone through and redesigned the Ethernet connector on these laptops, even if it included a dongle, even if that dongle is just a little plug-in thing like a flash drive. It doesn't really have to be big. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to have a cable on it. It could just be the USB-C type connector on one side, the RJ45 on the other. And you have something that's going to be there and easy to use and easy to throw in a bag and take with you if you're traveling. That's the goal with the laptops, right? If a laptop's going to be traveling, odds are you're not going to take a $200 plus dock and throw it in your bag with your laptop. You're just going to put the laptop in as a carry-on. It's going to have less weight. And if you had a dongle in there to handle your RJ45 needs, makes it a lot easier. Now, true, a lot of people use Wi-Fi, but again, depending on where you are, Wi-Fi can be vulnerable to a lot of attacks or to just having somebody intercept the signal that's going. Cabling is better usually for several reasons. The first of all being speed. Your cable is going to give you better speeds than your Wi-Fi is going to get. Stability. The cable is not going to drop in and out the way a Wi-Fi can drop in and out. And security. Your Wi-Fi can be monitored. It is a radio frequency. It can be captured. And while it may be difficult to see what's being sent back and forth, because there's usually an encryption end-to-end on that, so the signal coming out of your laptop is encrypted, goes to the Wi-Fi device, which decrypts it and then sends it out over a line. Here, by just having the line, you take that entire piece out, and that ability for somebody to jump in at that point taken out. Now, all the other issues that you get from security for having cables, right? Somebody monitoring the cable exists in both things. That's why I don't highlight that here. But for speed, stability, and security, cabling is a better way to go. I know a lot of people don't have their houses set up that way, but when you're traveling someplace else, you're going to a business, you're better off using that. Now, you're not going to get it at your Starbucks or any of the coffee shops that have Wi-Fi, or a garage for that matter. that offers Wi-Fi services. But when you're in a business, this would allow you to easily go from business to business, cable in directly, so you're not worried about the Wi-Fi and all the stuff that comes along with that, and get better speeds and more stability from it. But again, wonder why the hardware companies have never gone that route. Just a thought for this week. I will talk to you all next week.